and welcome to Game of Nutrition podcast. I'm your host Khadija again, and we talk about health and wellness and everything in between. Today, we have a very special guest with us here today. He's not just a chef, he's a culinary innovator and a food truck development consultant who's changing the game in the healthy baking world. Please welcome Chef Nirmal. We are thrilled to have you. Before we dive into the world of healthy baking and our topic today, that is healthy bread, real talk, and if you could tell a bit about your journey, led you to become a chef, and how you focus on food truck development.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
I don't do a lot of these, so this is quite new to me. So thanks for that. Well, I always had food happening around me. Our family comes from a background of food. My sister's a chef. My dad cooks a lot. My mom cooks a lot. I was born and raised in Goa, so uh, cooking was in the family. People used to come together for weddings. Everything was mostly around food. So I had my sensories were filled with like the aromas of bread and sausages and meats and vegetables and all that kind of stuff. So I think it picked up there from the smells and the sights right when I was a kid, like 7 or 8 or something. And I realized that this is something I want to pursue uh, from back home from Goa itself, because bread is a huge bread is in our blood there. Bread is a part of the culture. Unlike in our other states of India, it's mostly chapati, and there are different kinds of breads, but inherently the westernization, slightly more Western breads are in Goa, and I liked wake when I the first thing I used to wake up to is breads in the morning. The sound of the guide giving the pows and the
Yeah.
different other kind of breads. And uh, especially Goa works with a variety of flours, and and the processes are different, and I think that is the aroma of bread in the morning, fresh bread, is something that still sticks with me. It's very nostalgic, and I figured that's what I want to work around. And there's a huge cultural relevance to bread in Goa, and like in other states and other countries. So I felt this is something I'm very passionate about. Yeah.
So you have been working only with breads or other things as well?
So I actually I unfortunately bread isn't it still isn't an industry in itself that's that's really getting out there, picking up like a lot of other food, like international cuisines that are coming, and bread is still picking up very slowly. um I started as a baker. I did my hotel management like in way back in 2006, in hotel management in Gangtok, Sikkim, and I worked in Kolkata with a hotel. I worked in the bakery there, so we did work with. We can't work with specific. I'm sorry, specifically breads, because it's a bakery and a pastry. So there's cakes, there's
Yeah.
pastries, all of that. So I did work around the bakery and the pastry. That was initial years until 2012. I came back to Goa to work with another hotel, and once I came back to Kerala, I moved out of out of the food industry in sense in hotels, and I started working in an FMCG and helping restaurants set up, because I felt there's a lot around the food industry rather than just cooking and baking. So I understood the kitchen, how to work around, how to build a kitchen, how to train staff, how to work with people, how to, and like the functionings of a kitchen basically. Like I said, I work with an FMCG, so that was a lot. That was more of research and research, uh, making new products, and I got to work with a lot of exotic ingredients, see how you can make it functional. So it was a different kind of work, because you spend a lot of time around making products shelf stable, so you have a different perspective of how food is made and bought to the consumer. So yeah, so that was for 6 years, and I quit my job and I started working with very a very a varied kind of clients. I didn't I'm working on my own now. I work with dessert, frozen desserts, ice creams. I work with makhana. So it's a bunch of things that I find interesting.
That's great. That's good to know. And is there any particular mission or vision that you look for yourself, or is it just that whatever opportunity comes up, you just take it?
I do take up whatever opportunity comes that I see myself in. It has to make sense to me. It has to, at the end of the day, as exciting and exotic work can be, sometimes it has to be functional. And if I don't see myself in it, if I can't really get the results that people want, I I I don't really take up every project. Like I said, like there are cuisines and specific food that you work with that go really over my head. So preferably stick to breads and desserts, and because I have a better understanding of it, I know I like to research that market because I'm naturally fond of it. So yeah,
Mhm.
I still want to work in the bread. I want to be a part of the bread industry in India while it picks up. I want to be a part of it. I want to learn. I'll constantly be learning because that is how it is, right? I want to be a part of
Yeah.
that, and I'm sure I want to do. I mean, I do want to do a lot of things, but for now, it's like mostly work around breads and desserts, and also like cuisines. I like Goan cuisine a lot. There's so much rich culture and heritage around that, like any other state. And I think I want to bring that out. So probably I would work in and around Goa and understand the culture and cuisine.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And along with that, now since our topic today is healthy bread or uh, developing, breads, healthy versions of it, and is there some ingredient you swear by, or when you develop a bread, there's something that has to be there to get a good bread?
Uh, Rather than the thing, yeah. See, the thing is about bread is it is actually a simple as a set of three or four ingredients that you work with. It's more upon the process and the time and the love you put into it. You can process food, but with like you might when you eat food at home, the food tastes so good because your mom puts a lot of love into it. There's time given there. There's quick meals, there's ordering out, but then there's having food at home, and that's because of time and love. So for me, I don't think I would say I wouldn't swear upon uh, one particular ingredient, but a set of good quality ingredients that you understand and you give time. There is no fast forwarding breads because the end of the day, you get processed bread that you get all in every shelf. That you see doesn't really
Mhm.
have love in it. That is just it's a functional food at the end of the day. Not you can't when food is industrialized. It's not. It's an everyday need at the end of the day. You wake up and you got to make a quick toast. If you're working the IT industry, you work in any very busy industry, you can't really spend time and like bake bread at night. You're just going to go functional food. So
Yeah.
to answer your question, sorry I digress, but to answer your question, I guess all you need for bread is like good flour. So if you get like really good grain that's milled, or you get flour, as impractical as it sounds, it is very important. It's a leaven product.
Mhm.
So flour, if you have if you have decent, even if you don't need to use yeast, but if you can spend time on like something like a sourdough process, which is not very complicated if you understand it, decent salt and water is all that is required. Not even sugar. I think you can cut the sugar out if you can spend time. But these three ingredients are very important. So I would definitely say the flour is very good, and yeast. If of course you would use yeast. So if you get a good quality yeast, that so it's flour and yeast.
Okay, got it. So when we learn about bread, there are a lot of tweaks to the existing, traditional recipes that are there. Like we see a lot of reels and a lot of YouTube videos that talk about various kinds of, breads made with dals, just grinded, and they are very compact that as such. So when you talk about healthy breads, what is some misconception that you have encountered?
Most of the misconception about it is, see, the end of the day, bread, what we use generally is, like you said, the healthy breads. When people, it's great. I think the social media, the amount of content coming on social media, like Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is, the amount of videos that are out on breads, like any other thing, basically, is it's great because the end of the day, like people, I would have to go and look at a library, try to understand, talk to a chef, understand what grains are good. But people have actually spent time and put the effort of understanding how to process grains and, like you said, lentils and chickpeas or whatever to make bread out of it. I think that's a beautiful process, but it's obviously you need to put some research into it. So I think there's a lot of misconception also about flour. Uh, a misconception in sense, like I think it would be brown bread and multigrain breads and all, because you automatically, like for example, people talk about how good multigrain bread is and brown bread is, but at the end of the day, brown bread is brown bread is a combination of flours, but the combination is at the end of the day refined flour, which is bad for you. So
Okay.
when you say misconception, yeah, see, bread can be very unhealthy also, depending on how you have it. So there's a moderation there. So and people, so I think that when people actually put the effort of, like, soaking lentils and soaking two or three ingredients, and putting yeast into it, yogurt into it, making a bread out of it, I think that's fantastic, because you found a way to replace, like, you love bread and you found another replacement for it and you're sharing it. It's just that, people have to put more research into that and understand, is this good for you? Nutritional value is very important, so you understand how nutritionally good it is, and if the process still holds that nutrition, that's also very important. Because you look at flour, something like refined flour, like, maida is in everything. It's in brown bread. It is the larger ingredient. See, when you look at a back of pack, you always look at the first two ingredients, and if it's like refined flour, it's
Mhm.
bad for you, no matter what bread it is. So those are the misconceptions more than, social media misconceptions, because people are now, especially post COVID era, during COVID, people have been actually researching food, and they are very self aware of what they put into their stomach. And
Yeah.
people know now that, brown bread is very sus. It is Brown bread is
Yeah.
processed stuff, and yeah, inevitably you will be putting maida into it. And if brown bread looks brown, that is not natural. So the misconceptions actually now very obvious, and now I think social media is actually really helping these young people and all kinds of people actually bringing the self awareness. But as long as we do our own research and understand this is good for you, I guess it's good.
Yeah. But along with this, I've seen a lot of population that still thinks that what is written on the ingredient list is not what is in the product. As in, if even if we tell that this bread is whole wheat or this is brown or this brown bread is not healthy, they'll be like, "Arey, it's brown, it's whole wheat only." They do not
Mm.
think about looking at the ingredient that the first ingredient is refined flour or refined it's maida or that kind of thinking is still there in the masses. That is
Yeah.
what we're supposed to change now. So I think you've put in fantastic tips where when it comes to making bread at home, healthy versions of it. But as we dive deeper into the world of nutritious breads, and let's play a game called Bread and Misled. So when the audience can put in bread in the chat box, when the statement that comes up on your screen is true for you, then you have to type in bread, and if it's false, then you have to type in misled. So I think you can add on to the statements, and you can explain what is the reasoning behind those statements as we move ahead.
Yep, sure, sure. Let's do that.
Okay. So the statement one on your screen: all brown bread is made with whole wheat flour. I think this is clear from our discussion as of now.
Yeah.
But let's wait for the audience. The audience says misled, which is very clear from our discussion as
Mhm.
of now, because all brown bread is obviously not made of whole wheat flour. It's important to
Yep,
check
yep,
the nutrition label and the ingredients that come along with it.
yep,
Would you
yep,
want
yep.
to add something to it?
Brown bread is generally very misled. I think brown bread, to be honest, the only brown bread you can have is, there are two ways. First is, you need to go to a very independent, very niche bread maker who is focused on bread, and we, unfortunately, in India, like I said earlier, like, we don't have that market yet where you can
Mhm.
get access to this. If you do, you're paying top dollar, you're paying a lot of money for that.
Mhm.
Especially because it is not, you don't get healthy, fluffy bread that's pure brown. Because brown bread, like multigrain flour and any flour that doesn't have refined or processed flour, doesn't leaven the way,
Mhm.
it doesn't leaven like, brown bread. It'll be a little hard, it'll be chewy. So I definitely would say that, yeah, it's not easy to get it. So that problem is there. And secondly, what do you call it? Mm, The one way you can make sure that you get good brown bread, you can make it yourself. And I think that is, there is generally, like you said, there is also this thing that, bread is not very easy to make, because bread itself has been made so accessible to us in shelves that we don't see it as an easy thing to make. So, but I think people can
Yeah.
actually use the simple step of, going to YouTube and looking at no need recipes, no need, not where you can just have like water, yeast, whatever grain you like, blend it and bake it, and it's you're making it, you're not adding anything more than that. So, and you can make a batch for a whole week. So I guess it's not that hard, but brown bread is definitely uh, quite fake what's in the market. And the two
Mm-hmm.
ways is you pay a lot of money and go to a very niche baker, and brown bread doesn't last for a long time. It lasts for a
Yeah.
day because they're not meant to be shelf stable. They absorb a lot of water rather than like maida or anything. So you can make it. It's not difficult. You can go to Amazon or any what do you call it, any site, and buy like you can actual rye flour, or which will also have some amount of flour in it, but you can moderate and make it and have it. Or it's you'll have to buy it, which is going to be difficult, the accessibility wise.
Yeah. Okay, that's a lot of information for the audience. And I think it's important to understand that some things are easily made at home, but at the same time, convenience is the king at this point in time.
Exactly.
But along with that comes in a lot of people actually do try to make their own bread, and that kind of a
Yeah.
thinking is also there. But it again comes boils down to having the necessary
Mm.
oven and those kind of things available. So
Yeah.
let's move on to the statement two. Sourdough bread can be easier to digest than regular bread. Can you explain the process of making a sourdough fermentation or the types, you can get a starter culture made?
Yeah, I think, see, the thing is, that's what I mean. Like, I think the simplicity of it is pretty crazy. Like, it's also depending on where you're living. If it's a cold place, then you'll have like a warmer circumstance. But if you're living naturally in a humid or hot place, a Stardo culture is basically it's flour and water, because flour naturally has wild yeast in it. It's a natural
Mm,
occurrence, and it is, at the end of the day, it's a bacteria that lives. It literally lives. It breathes life, and once it is activated, there's acetic acid, and that's the perfect conditioning. Like, yeast. This wild yeast wants the acetic acid, and I don't want to get into the science of it, but is basically it's one part flour and one part water, and you're mixing it and you're keeping it a day for 24 hours, and you have starter culture. And this is the so Sardo. The reason asking about, like, if you ask me why it is healthier, I'm going to say comparatively healthier, because at the end of the day, there is some certain amount of gluten in it. But sourdough, see, the thing is, before yeast came, like before there was something like yeast, before industrialization, there was always starter culture. The beginning of human civilization was sourdough. Like, people made bread like that. It was an accident, but people made it like that. And but this thing took time. Fermentation took time. So over time, sourdough, when you make like a starter, the gluten in it is broken down.
yeah,
The phytic acid is something that does not allow you to absorb nutrients that is in the flour, like, like the minerals, like
yeah,
calcium, magnesium, zinc, all of these nutrients that is in the bread. Like, the one good thing that you can get from it nutritionally,
yeah,
it doesn't let you absorb. This natural fermentation time allows the breakdown of phytic acid, which
yeah,
helps you in digestion. When it's processed bread, what happens is, when it is processed through yeast, you're cutting this entire step. So you have phytic acid there, you have the gluten there. It's in very high amount, so it doesn't really you're taking nothing in terms of nutrition, and it's not good for your gut. Generally, not good for your gut at all. It is really bad. But at the end of the day, it's a daily need. Bread is a daily need, and I'm guessing people have it. If you can moderate it, it's okay. But sourdough was the way to go. It was how our forefathers actually made bread, and that's why you see they were always much more healthier than our generation. So yeah,
yeah.
I think it's as simple as flour and water that is fermented, and this fermentation really helps cut all the bad parts of what you take in
All
terms
the
of bread.
anti-nutrition factors basically. So
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
helps to break those down, and
Exactly.
that's how
Yeah.
you are able to absorb those nutrients better.
One more thing is about sourdough is not just the bread. Starter culture is like just flour and water that you can make and keep, and you can use in anything. You can change your breakfast the next day. You can add it into flour. You can add some sugar, make pancakes out of it. You can
Okay.
make like a pudding that you can bake out of it. So there's so much you can do out of that. That is actually healthy for you, and you can make bread out of it too. So it is just It is yeast basically that you. It's a yeast replacement, and it is good for you. It is
Yeah,
good for you comparatively to your processed bread.
that's interesting. Instead of even baking sodas, baking powders, I think you can use
Exactly. Yeah.
starter culture.
Yeah.
The audience was not sure of the answer, and the answer is that it is true. So, as we have explained it, let's move on to the next statement, which is multigrain bread is always healthier than white bread. Yeah,
I am extremely sorry. I don't know what happened. I think my page just crashed. Yeah,
that's
I'm
okay.
sorry for the inconvenience. Yeah, where were we? So this has I really can't give one answer for this. Be honest, because multigrain bread has when you talk about multigrain, you're not talking about one specific grain. There's a lot of grains that go in it, and when you look at the grains that go in a multigrain bread, every grain has different density. So multigrain bread will always have a certain not so great amount of flour in it to support the grains. So so you see any multigrain bread, they're basically based on a white or a brown bread. So it is not the best unless again you actually it's actual multigrain bread, like you said, that is and the yeast added. So that is a very niche product. So most of the products that you see in the market, like multigrain breads, are mostly like you see these grains embedded in them like multigrains. Even these grains are kept in a way that they have to be shelf stable. So see, comparatively again than white bread, they are definitely more healthy. So that's your answer. But you got to be very wary of like where you buy it from, where you get it from. So yeah, I just feel kind of sad where you don't have these unless you're in a very top tier city where you can get access to this. It is difficult, but like you said, it's accessible now. People can make it.
And at the same time, the multi-grains that are used, you do not know if they are refined or they're not refined. So
Exactly.
it depends on those factors as well. If all of them are
Right.
refined as well, I think there's no
Yeah.
extra nutrient that you're getting, irrespective of
Right.
the fact that it's a multi-grain bread.
Yeah.
So
There's
that
also the
also
fact
has
that
to
see,
be
we are in
considered.
India. Yeah, we're in India, right? We
Mhm.
don't really have bread as a food, like a daily food. It's always roti, and we have like Indian food, like in the south, it's idli and rice, and up north, it's like it's different kind of food. So we don't like there aren't businesses enough that focus on creating healthy bread a lot. Like that's why people have taken it upon themselves to make it. So yeah, so I think that is also a small problem. So it's you don't have the option of choosing which is better the other. You either go for a sliced bread that says multigrain, which is an absolute scam, or
Mhm.
you go for very high end product which is up there in the market.
Yeah, so there's a question that says which are the mostly used grains when it comes to a multi-grain bread.
What are the mostly there's wheat bran is used, there's rye, there's oat. So again, this would depend on what kind of like multigrain when it comes to flax. Multigrain really varies. Different people use different. There are different
Mhm.
variations of flour. So it could also they could also have nut flour. So multigrain again, it's a very generic term. Multigrain. It's not a particular one. But yeah,
Yeah,
wheat. Yeah, like I said, there's whole
I
wheat,
think
there's
even
bran, there's
oats,
rye.
yeah, oats,
Yeah,
barley,
exactly.
and all
Oats
these
is
are
also
also
used, like
used.
rolled oats, barley, all of that is there. Yeah, but
Yeah.
also I think it's more Western. Like in France, or we go to other parts of Europe and America, it always changes on the availability.
Let's move on to the next statement. Almond flour is a popular gluten-free alternative in healthy baking. The audience, I think they've already answered yes.
Oh, sorry, you guys were waiting for me. I forgot that.
No,
Uh,
I just put up the statement a bit earlier because
yeah,
on the
yeah,
live stream, the audience gets it later by the time
right,
they
right,
answer. Yeah.
right. Um, so yeah, it is true. Like almond flour is really great. Is really great compared to flour because you're not. To be honest, it's a nut flour. So we're not really calling it a flour. Our concept of flour is anything that's milled to the consistency of a flour. So almond flour is really really good. It has all the nutrients up there. People go to the gym have almonds. So it definitely is. It's a very almond flour is widely used in baking now. The only thing is its accessibility. You are paying a lot of money for almond flour. So there is an extent until how much you can use, how accessible is it as a daily need. So and again, I feel almond flour won't hold on its own. So there will again be supporting ingredients there. But since it's highly nutritious, you can add a little bit of flour. For me, I can't. You can't cut everything to zero. You can only moderate. So
Hmm.
flour and almond flour really works together very well.
I think the binding is not there because of the oils in almonds when it comes to.
Yeah, yeah, it exactly. But again, there are natural gums that you can use. It's not everything is not bad. If you have there are
Hmm.
gums and natural gums and binders that you can use in very small quantities. That once you bake on in such a high temperature, they kind of they hold the bread and they're not really harmful for you. But yeah, it'll definitely be a combination of almond and something else. But almond flour is a great substitute for a lot of things, like especially gluten.
Yeah, and when it comes to almond flour based products, they are definitely low carb options. So even people with keto and
Yes.
they who opt for low carb diets, it's a better option to choose.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next statement, chickpea flour has less protein than regular flour.
Okay.
Five seems to
You
be
got to
no.
know for that, which
So
is
that's
yeah,
true.
that's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, I was waiting like with somebody else going to also answer. Yeah, I'm very sorry. I'm a little new to this. Technologically so handicapped, so I'm very I'm old. Yeah. So chickpea flour is definitely high protein. Again, like almond flour, I feel is a very good substitute. It's delicious. First of all, there are so many ways that you can use chickpea flour. Normally, flours like lentil flour, I have worked with chickpea flour and lentil flour. They have a lot of smell, aroma, and this taste. But chickpea flour is has that, but you can always mask chickpea flour with a lot of like I said, bread. You'll never get the perfect bread like you have like a French baguette, which is flour. But then if you don't mind the little bit of taste variation, there's a lot of added additions you can do. You can make a toast with avocado and hummus and everything. So there's so much you can do. So chickpea like flours like chickpea flour, lentil flour, wheat bran, and like you said, almond flour are great replacements and they have a lot of protein content in it. Yeah, if you're working out, if you're like a gym bro, it really works for you.
Yeah, and again, it's a gluten-free alternative as well.
Exactly. That's also there.
Let's move on to our next statement. All gluten-free breads are high in fiber. Let's see what the audience says. There are
Yeah,
mixed responses for this. So there's like no as well as yes.
yeah. But again, I think that I can I answer this.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it is right. Like there's a no and a yes. It also depends on what kind of all gluten free bread means. Like you're replacing it with so many options. Like lentils, chickpea, uh, and a lot of them will not have completely. They'll have some amount of gluten. It'll just be very minimal,
Mhm.
and depends on what kind of grain you're using there or what kind of nut flour you're using there. So it's definitely a yes and a no in a way. So I guess it can be confusing,
Yeah.
but there's both.
So ideally, the answer would be misled over here because
Yeah.
all gluten-free breads would not be high in fiber. Because there are gluten-free breads made out of potato starch and rice. So those
Yeah.
would definitely be low in fiber content.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's always important to check the label. Even on the fiber
Right.
content, you have it in your nutrition table. So that's
Right.
important. Let's go to the seventh. Oh, this is the second last statement with there. So you can make bread with cauliflower.
I think we got one
So
yes. The other yes one was from the previous answers, what I think.
yeah, okay, again, there's a yes and a no.
Yeah, I think this is definitely because a cauliflower pizza was a huge thing. Was had an era
It
of
still is.
had a life and a death. But yeah, cauliflower is definitely you can make bread out of it depending on what kind of bread you make out of it. But yeah, it's definitely a good replacement again. I don't think it's very nutritious, but it works. It does the job. Gluten free again.
Mhm.
But yeah, it definitely is a good replacement. Pita, you can make pita bread out of it. We've done that, and it's really interesting. It's really good bread for dips,
Yeah,
pizza, and yeah, whatnot, stuff like that. So definitely is.
yeah, I think that sums it up. And the last question, it's a little trick question. So before the audience answer it, also I want to explain it that the first statement is very similar to this, but over here we're talking about brown bread. Bread is always made from 100% whole grain. So the first statement what we had was if all breads are made with whole wheat flour. Here we're talking about 100% whole grain. So the audience is, let's wait. I think we have covered this in our previous discussion as well.
Yeah, we did.
Brown bread can,
Yeah,
the
that's a good.
brown bread
I
is
hope
supposed to
diplomatically
be,
answer this. Very
yeah.
diplomatic. I like that.
But most of the time, actually, this is the statement that we have our whole discussion ahead of us lined
Yeah,
up on. It is
I love that
misled
answer.
because
I
this is like
supposed to be
the thing that is misled, and this is what the topic is about. I think let's
right.
get ahead directly into the discussion, what we have planned for today. So,
Yeah.
let's start with the elephant in the room, that's the brown bread. So what is the, if you look at the ingredients, what would be the thing that would easily, explain to the audience uh, that that this bread is made out of maida, or what are the alternative names that are there in the ingredient list?
So see, the thing is, if you look at most brown breads that are in the shelves, major, you'll see refined flour. That is it. Like you begin there and it ends there. Like it doesn't end there. Once you know, that is the biggest red flag. Once you see it's refined flour, is most, even if it's like, even if they say, if you look at it, the atta or whatever other, like oat flour or everything should be basically 13 or 20%, but most of it, if you look at it, the first, so when you read the look, let me go to the back, start from the beginning. When you read a back of pack, you're supposed to put all the ingredients are supposed to put in the order of the amount, the amount of the percentage of the ingredients that you're using. It'll be in the ascending to descending order. So if you see, refined flour will be something that will stick out in traditional shelf stable breads. And stuff, when you see something like INS, which is basically a dye, and brown breads they actually add dye and caramel in it to make it brown, because breads are not naturally brown. They don't necessarily have to be brown. It's not compulsorily like brown. It can be almost white also. So there's this caramel in it. So you'll always see antioxidants, and you'll see like improvers written there. And the second half of the ingredient. So I've actually bought a nutritional information. I kind of a bread. I want to read it out to you if that's okay. If
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So the first one says atta, which is whole wheat atta. Again, it says 57 percentage, which is great. Okay, but the end of the day, if you see the rest of the ingredients, which is, there's yeast, which is fine. There's sugar to a certain extent, it helps in leavening. Then that's when it gets very red flaggy, where you see refined palm oil, you see preservatives. There's malt products. Something like a malt product is where it's a dye, and you'll see a flour treatment agent, and everything after that, antioxidant, are meant, more than three or four or five ingredients in that are meant to preserve the bread, to preserve the products. Because something like bread, something like a multigrain or a brown bread is made with alternative flours. It's not just refined flour. So uh, other than refined flour, all the other flours absorb a lot of water, and once they absorb it, they hold that water, and that makes it very moist and sticky. So they're not really they're not really fluffy, and they're not really supposed to have more shelf life than maybe one to 48 hours, basically 1 day to 2 days. So the main idea of these companies are to make it shelf stable, and secondly, it's a visual thing. Like, my teacher told me once, the food is had consumed by the eyes before the mouth. So once you see brown bread and multigrain, oh, okay, you know what, this is better than the white bread, because, oh, white bread
Yeah,
is white, so we'll just pick it up. So there's no time. People don't have time. It's a fast world. People are living in the fast lane. They won't pick up something. Or the kids would, I'm going to take multigrain or whole wheat atta bread for my kids for tiffin tomorrow. That's the ideology. There's so much happening. You don't have time to spend and see, is it good for you? Is it bad for you? To what extent is it harmful? And yeah, stuff like that.
yeah. So when it comes to switching to whole wheat bread over the regular bread, or the regular white, or the even I would call white or the brown bread, switching to a whole wheat version of bread, what would be the benefits that come along, or what part of the grain is, used in whole wheat, and what is absent in the white or the brown bread?
So the thing about It's more than the absence. Is like I said, all breads are processed now. Nobody is doing the whole sourdough fermentation now. That is, the fermentation is everything. A natural fermentation, like I said, takes out the whole phytic acid and all of that, and gives you, lets you absorb the nutrients, which is not happening at all. So honestly, you are only going for a lesser evil. This is okay, slightly better. You are getting very minimal nutrients from brown bread. At the end of the day, and white bread is processed bread. At the end of the day, there is, even if it, yeah, the difference is very menial, because the end of the day, both the white and the brown bread go through multiple processes that take it out of the food matrix. It's being stored for, while the raw materials are stored, it's being processed to a point that it's shelf stable. Then it is processed. Then there's post process. Then it's packaged. So this, it goes through so much that there's nothing left. But like I said, it's the lesser evil. Then you can say that there's slightly more nutrition in the process, in the non-white bread, because there's more happening. But then
Yeah.
sadly, there's more shelf stability. They're putting more work into making the non-refined flour bread, like a brown bread, hold in a shelf. So there's more, there's more additives there. So yeah, at the end it's the same. I don't believe that there's a lot happening unless you're making it at home.
Yeah, so I would want to add to this from nutrition point of view. So what happens is in the grain, there is the bran, there is the germ, and there is the endosperm. There are three parts of a
Yeah.
grain. So when it
Yeah.
comes to white bread, only the endosperm is used. Whereas when it's a whole wheat, the bran as well as the germ is used. Now, germ is very
Yeah.
rich in vitamin E, as well as the bran has a lot of fiber. So you're
Yeah.
losing on the fiber and the vitamins and the minerals as well when it comes to the refined white refined flour and the bread made out of that. So this fiber which is present in the whole grain based flour or based bread, the fiber will help in digestion. It will help in regulating the blood sugar. It will keep you full of for a longer period of time. And it's especially useful when you're managing conditions like diabetes and high cholesterol. So uh, as we move ahead with this, and we had a lot of questions which was based on gluten-free options. But
Yeah.
what are the trending healthy flours that are there right now currently in the market? And other than, we spoke about almond flour. So what are the other?
Like I said, I think now there are flours that are readily gluten free. So uh, that are processed to, where the gluten is less. There's whole wheat flour. I think atta is always something that is very because, like I said earlier, like I wanted to be practical and something that people can use. So atta is very readily available. So it is being
Mhm.
used highly. And there's lentil flour, there's chickpea flour, there is rye flour. Yeah, and multigrain is a combination of flours. Like there can be flax in it, there can be oat flour in it. So from my knowledge now, there's a lot of this. And I think millet is now picking up like crazy, so I think millet is something that's highly nutritious, and it's something that really is, it has a lot of nutritional information, not a lot of nutritional uh, elements in it that really help you. So if you can process it enough to add it into the in bread, I think is fantastic. And I, like I said, see, bread is an everyday need. Since we are kids, we've had bread. You can't, I don't believe in people like, oh, this is bad for you, can't cut off. Like people who drink, you can't tell me you don't drink alcohol is bad for you. People will the end up drinking. It's about moderation. My dad loves drinking. So to answer your question, there's, I think there's millet flour, there's flax, there's oatmeal flour, there's rye. You can always add it into a small percentage of flour and make it accessible to you, because these are highly nutritious, and but they can be supported by some refined flour, and you can make all kinds of flour. And like I said, if you use a no knead method, it's very easy to use these and make this at home with simple ingredients, very easily available on YouTube videos. I just want to answer a question. I think it's been like in the comments for a while about shelf
Yeah,
stability.
yeah,
Do you think the bread with long shelf life is harmful? It is definitely, because it's at the end, shelf stability is something people do. Like you want to sell a bread, at the end it's a business. You want to keep a bread for more than 2 or 3 days, because people will take some time to buy it, and doesn't make any sense for bread to go bad in 1 or 2 days, because it'll be a huge waste to and a company or a profitable business. So definitely there are a lot of antioxidants, there are a lot of additives. There are a lot of things that go into it. There's manpower and a lot of R&D going into keeping the food shelf stable, not necessarily in a healthy way, especially if they're like huge companies making bread in like in a very huge scale and mass. So yes, processed food is out of the food matrix, and it is shelf stability is something is majorly looked into, and not necessarily with health in.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the shelf life that is available, that's written on the label, beyond that, if you have anything that would be harmful to health, irrespective of,
It is.
yeah,
Yeah.
irrespective of, even if there are a lot of preservatives added to, make it shelf stable, but that is like another angle to it. So, are gluten-free breads healthier than regular breads?
Gluten-free breads are definitely healthier for your bread, because the end of the day, the digestion is important. Like if you're not if glutinous bread. See, gluten is actually, if you look at, we are now we are in a very we compartmentalized. We are in a box. We're talking about breads. But if you think of maida and flour in general, how it's used in sauces, it's used in cakes. You are taking gluten in some way or form in through so many food. Like there are like definitely, as much as aware you are, you might there might be a 20% of you, not you're not even aware that you are taking gluten through so many other ways. So a gluten-free bread is definitely healthier, because the options are nut-based flours, grains, and like I said, cauliflower. So they're not doing harm to you, but they're better than the amount of gluten that's in gluten food. So to answer, it is definitely healthier, but we are at a good place where we can actually choose healthier grains and flours, which will actually, not just replace gluten, but also give you some nutritional benefits.
Yeah, and at the same time, opting for a gluten-free option just because it's gluten-free is not an ideal thing. Like if you have
Exactly.
celiac disease or you have gluten sensitivity, and then
Yeah.
you're opting
Yeah.
for um
Yeah.
gluten-free version of some product, then it's worth it. But
Yeah.
again, along with that, as you mentioned, most of the gluten-free options have better quality of nutrients as well as fiber. So we have a question from the audience that says, "What is your
Yeah.
recommendation for local bakery product? Is good or branded long shelf life is similar?"
I have so many. I mean, I have multiple answers for that. I have answers might not be in the nutritional bracket. I would say definitely go for local bakeries. Come on, like local bakeries put love and effort. Like a lot of bakeries I come from, like I said, I've lived in Goa a long time. Even I'm sure you're in Muscat and I have friends in Bangalore. Lot of people have age-old bakeries that they put a lot of effort. It's less processed because they are day bakeries. They sell breads for one day and then it's done. If you see a lot of bakeries, good bakeries, no, go to bakeries that are crowded, who have a lot of people they who like their food, because the food gets sold out. They're not looking at shelf service. They're looking at to sell fresh food. So fresher breads are better. uh Definitely they have less preservative. Like it's simple, like if you buy a cheesecake from a supermarket, you buy a cheesecake from bakery, it tastes better. But it spoils faster, the bakery, compared to supermarket,
Yeah.
because it's not meant to stay for longer time. Food is not meant to be shelf stable. After industrialization, the main point of industrialization is to make food last longer, to be convenient, and to be indulgent. At the end of the day, I want indulgence. That's why I say, you can't sacrifice your love for food and love for taste, how good you're craving for food. All you can do is understand it better and pursue that better. Also, secondly, I always go to local bakeries to support small businesses. I think they put a lot of effort and love. So, I always support business like that compared to corporates. Even though I might be a little hypocritical, because I do end up going to a shop and buying like a proper bread because it's easy. But yeah,
And when you go to small local bakeries, there's a variety in the kind of, even if it's a regular bread, one local bakery will have a different taste texture than some other local bakery. So you always get something new to taste if you're trying for
exactly.
different options as
Yeah.
well.
True, and it's accessible also. You get to talk to the people who
Yeah,
make it, so you can know what goes into that. They listen to you, and they are also keeping up with the market. They are also doing a lot of brown breads now, and you can actually ask them. This is what I want. This is what you have.
yeah. And when it comes to making these breads itself at home, what are your tips for making them healthy at home?
Simple. Use what use the most basic things what humans always were meant to use. Like, like if you're making any flour, use flour, use yeast, use water, use salt. You don't need sugar, you don't need any of this. If And give your time and love, and it'll turn out beautifully. And I don't think breads have to look like bread. That's why there is the no need, KNEAD, not the no need method, but the no need method, where you can actually just put flour, you can put water, you can make a sourdough starter. Simply make a sourdough starter, which is water and flour, and keep it in a humid place. It'll ferment. Use that into your flour, salt, and water, and mix it with a fork. And once it bubbles up overnight, next day you put it in the tray and bake it, and you have bread. It'll look like a plop. It won't look very appetizing, but you can wrap it, put in your fridge, and have it over a week, and you are healthy. I mean, you are doing yourself a favor. You're doing your gut a favor. It's very easy, and there are tons of, like, social media is great now. Instagram is great, YouTube is great. There are tons of recipes out there that is so simplified and so accessible.
Yeah. And along with this, I think since like people always consider roti to be an ideal. So roti is made out of wheat. There's just a few
Yeah,
more things that are added into bread. So it's
definitely.
like if you switch from roti to bread, I'm just continuing this with the question that
Yeah,
there is there in the
yeah,
chat box.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So uh, ideal serving for a person for like replacing your two rotis is two slices of bread. That's like one serving for a person for a meal. So that's the amount of carbs that is enough. So when it comes to having bread daily or some, there are a lot of countries that their staple is bread, and that's how they daily eat bread. And India we eat rotis and chapatis. So it is okay to have it daily as well, but you have to find the better option. And as you mentioned, you can make it at home, or you can choose a good option. And you cannot start having bread from tomorrow every day and be like, oh, it's not working out for me, because your gut is, it's built in such a way, the microbiome is in such a way that your it's more used to digesting the roti instead of the bread. Now that will slowly build up if you want to really switch to having bread every day and being able to digest it easily. So that comes with time, but it is okay to have bread daily as well. But remembering portion control as well as remembering to find the better quality and the better ingredient based bread is also important. You would want to add something?
Yeah, I think, like I said, the Indian culture of cooking is the best example. Like you said, the when I say make it yourself, look at chapati as a bread. What goes into it? Flour and this. And why do you know it's why do you have it? Why are you having it every day? Because it's simplicity. Its nutritional benefits. It's 100% atta. If you mill the atta, even better. So if you add some yeast to it, to the same chapati, that becomes bread literally. So yeah, you can have it every day, as long as you are sure of what's going into it. So definitely you can, as long as you can, moderate it, and like you said, what's going, how to put it in your diet.
Yeah. So let's move on to a little different topic regarding breads, but there are people who want to avoid traditional carbs. So as we spoke about cauliflower-based bread, is there some other type of bread that is there in the market, or that turns out to be better than the regular trending breads that we have right now?
See, to be honest, see, I think you can make breads out of like any grain now, as long as you process it the right way. But I think, see, breads, it's like saying, a biryani, like a Hyderabadi biryani, or like a little biryani, or like a biryani is always best made. Like if you have a Hyderabadi biryani, you need to go to Hyderabad. So a classic is going to be a classic, right? So definitely
Mhm.
there will be a comparative problem where you'll be like, oh, this doesn't taste as good. But it's you can make it indulgent. At the end of the day, indulgence is very important. As much as to say, as much as you like eating salads, you'd want to, at the end of the week, have a pizza or have some steak, something like that. So you can the I personally use whole wheat flour, atta, and I've used millet, and it's come out fantastically well. I use tapioca flour. Sorry, I stammer. Tapioca flour also, and I've used rice flour. I've used a mix of these flours. They've come fantastically well. But I personally like my white breads because I think I'm so used to it. It's ingrained in me. So for me, a classic will always be a classic. But at the end, once you have a bread, bread is not like a biryani where you just eat it on its own. Like there are a lot of supporting things in it. You have need to put a lot of toppings in it. So definitely you can work around that. If you're using like a lentil, you're soaking lentils and chickpeas and adding yogurt and adding yeast, water, and fermenting and making bread out of it. Texturally, it'll be different. Taste wise, it might not be fantastic. But then if you make a nice spicy avocado dip, or you make a nice omelette with some chili oil, it's a great treat. So you put what you love onto the bread, and it becomes as good as any other bread. Is the best way I can put it.
Yeah, and there's even potato bread and cloud bread that's there. Potato buns
Yeah,
are
yeah.
easily available. So,
Is available. Yeah, it's
can
true.
you add on how that is made differently from the regular bread?
So a potato basically brings a stretchability to it, and has a particular. It makes it a little dense. But I don't think nutrition wise, how potatoes are not the best option. Like it's definitely not a healthier option because potato buns are very widely used in hamburgers now because it brings a density to it. It absorbs. It has a high moisture absorbent this to it. It has a thing where it absorbs a lot of moisture. So when you have like a beef patty and you add it to it, add it into a potato bun, it absorbs the juices from the beef. So it has that, and it also has a buttery note also. So all of this is there. But at the end, it is the starch in the potato that acts well with the flour and makes really good hamburger buns. Because inherently, if you see, potato buns are used a lot in hamburgers. In America, they use potato starch and call it potato buns because American food is highly processed. So you'll find all kinds of strange things and addictive things. That's because how much process goes into it. Here, we basically boil potatoes, mash it, and we add it into the dough to make it really this. It's also part of like gnocchi pasta is made like that, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
that's another thing. You can also make pasta, like the you can use the pasta flour and make bread out of that, and that's fantastic. But potato, nutritional wise, I wouldn't recommend it, but it definitely gives a nice. If you're a bread aficionado, you'll like making sandwiches and burgers. Potato goes well. You mash potatoes, you really mash them, you put some cream into them, and you mix them into your dough with some butter, and you have a really nice brioche like dense buttery bread.
Okay, that's nice. That's nice. I think the audience has got a lot of information. Let's just close with the rest of the questions that we have now. So there's a question that says, I've read that brown bread is not superior calorie wise. Is there a need to switch from white bread to brown multigrain bread if I'm concerned about the nutritional value?
I think you have you answered this a little while ago. I
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
think like you said, yeah, you want to take that, I can add on to it. You can put the science into it, I can put the consumerism into it.
yeah. So, brown bread again, when it comes to calories, at the end, all the breads would have a similar caloric ratio because the quantity that we are eating is almost the same. The nutrients that come with it would differ. So if you're switching from white bread to brown multigrain bread, again you have to check on to the what kind of multigrains are there present in the bread, as well as if they are polished, unpolished, or if they are whole grains that are used. So the best option is to switch to any whole grain bread, even if it's not multigrain or if it's just whole wheat bread. So calorie is not something that would matter here, but the nutrients would matter. Yeah, I think I've answered that.
For me, I'm sorry, most of the answers come my answers come from very different direction. My thing is that if it would be more about where you switch it from, like you make sure when you buy whole grain bread, you kind of you know where you're buying from. You look at the back of pack, you buy from local bakeries, and definitely at the end of the day, I don't think it'll make a major difference. It'll definitely make a difference, but it'll be supported by some refined flour. But it is comparatively, it's always the lesser evil. I feel it's better, but mostly commercially, multigrain breads also processed to death. So if you can get from a local bakery, there in Kerala, at least there are lot of local bakeries which are a little high end, but they do sell multigrain breads, and you can actually like we said, you can actually talk to them and tell them, this is what I want, how much is it. So yeah, I think you've got to be aware as a customer of what the contents are in the bread, and if they have a variable difference, there's a lot of flour in it that's not refined. It's great for you, but yeah, you best be informed and buy.
Yeah. I think let's close. We have already exceeded the time. It's been over an hour.
Yes.
So it was great
Okay.
having you here. We've not learned a lot. I've personally learned a lot. But I think we will take up more questions on the WhatsApp community. You can put in the questions on the podcast group and we can have those answered there. And
Yeah, we can do that definitely.
so let's end the
So
stream.
yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It
Bye.
was I learned a lot. Also, I learned the science part of it. Thank you so much, and it was great doing this. And yeah, I'm going to keep
Yeah.
watching this your stream. Thank you very much,
Thank
and
you.
have a good weekend. Bye.